I am pleased again to announce our next speaker, Daci. She is a parent of a previous canSURVIVE participant, Gavin, who also had Ewing sarcoma. So you guys have been great supporters of us, so I am really excited to hear you speak. And so, Daci, come on up.
Okay, hello everybody. If everybody wants to get food and eat while I'm talking, I would love that. This is what I do with golf. I tell everybody, just talk the whole time as I'm swinging. That way you don't have to pay attention to me because I get nervous. But I am the proud mom of this little buddy right here, this cancer survivor, Gavin. Come here. He's being all shy too. Come here, stand by me. As mentioned, like Cammie, Gavin had Ewing sarcoma, and it is very rare for, well, it's mainly in teenagers, as mentioned. So Gavin was diagnosed when he was 6 months old, and they first told me this is neuroblastoma. So right when we first found his tumor, they actually gave me paperwork to start researching neuroblastoma. And so 3 days in, when we got the pathology back and I found out it was Ewing sarcoma, I thought, well, no more reading. I'm just going to go along with the plan of what they tell me because there's no reason for me to research because I'm just scaring myself, you know? And we'll just deal with what comes along. To tell you a little bit about what happened, because one of the big things I try to tell everybody that come to me and talk about things that are happening in their lives, when Gavin was 6 months, he was just a regular, healthy little boy. He was chunky, you were little chunks. He was happy, he was so healthy, and I just thought, I just had this normal baby. He was my firstborn, and life was just so great. And I just thought everything was good. And then one weekend, I just noticed that he was just really quiet, and he just laid there, and he was still happy as can be. But he didn't move a lot, and I thought, well, this is really weird. What's going on? I just thought he must be sick or just not feeling well. And then as the week progressed, he didn't move much at all. He really got to the point he would just lay there, and he would just watch a movie. You know, he'd just have TV on. He'd just lay there. And I thought, this isn't normal. And he just barely learned to sit up, and I could carry him around. He was just strong as can be. And all of a sudden, he would just lay there, and he couldn't move. He couldn't sit up anymore, and I thought, something's going on. I went to the doctor, and they told me, they did x-rays, because I just said he's not moving his legs, and they said that, he just has gas, right? He's uncomfortable, so he can't kick his legs, so he's just not moving, and I thought, well, that was weird, and they sent me home. And another day later, I said, this is not right, and so I went back again, and I said, something's wrong, and told them further things that were happening. I said, he can't even support himself or sit up. So they sent me to Primary Children's, and we did bone scans, and we did blood work, and everything came back fine. And so they sent me home again. And I just knew something was wrong. My mother's intuition, I thought, this is not okay, even though they're telling me it is. And so after that, family and everything just said, you just need to keep pushing. You're not being crazy. Went back to the doctor again. Literally got laughed at by one doctor, not too out loud, but he did. He laughed at me and just, they told me I was a crazy mom, that I was pushing because everybody had done scans and everything was fine. But I knew it wasn't. So luckily, I really think God just had a big old hand in this because I called my doctor, the pediatrician. I said, I really need to see a neurologist, please. And he said, okay, I'll do the referral. They sent it to primaries. And I called down, and the lady that answered the phone, this was a Thursday, and I said, I need to get in to see the doctor. And this was in September, and she told me the first opening was December. And I just started crying on the phone. I said, I've been, for the last week, I've seen doctors, specialists, and nobody can help me, and I know something's wrong, and I can't wait till December because something's wrong with my kid. And she said, we had an opening tomorrow morning if you can come down. Yes, I'll take it. So I went down. The neurologist clearly could see something was wrong because normally 6-month-olds are not paralyzed from their waist down. And so they told me, come back tomorrow morning, this Saturday, we'll fit you in and we'll get an MRI. So down we go, got the MRI, and while he was still in the machine, the doctors came in and said, I have bad news. Gavin has a tumor. And instantly I thought, what, a tumor? I mean, is it cancer? My kid has cancer? How can that happen? And I had thought that, as I wondered what was going on, and everybody told me, no, your son doesn't have cancer. That's not even a possibility, So when they told me he had a tumor, and they said, we don't know yet from pathology, but it does look like it could be. So this was a Saturday. They confirmed there was a tumor, and what was happening is, and again, Ewing sarcoma, it's very scary, but it presents itself different from what I hear from a lot of different people, but his actually was in his chest, and then it had grown into his spinal column, so it was growing down against his spinal cord, and it was smashing against his spinal cord. So that's why he was losing all of his movement in his body, his lower limbs. And they told me, we have to rush him back right now because that has already been compressed, and the longer it's there, he may never get movement back again in his legs. So they instantly called in a neuro, it was a Saturday, they didn't have the team there, but they called them in. We were on floor 2 of primary children's. No one was there, and I just remember waiting and holding my baby, and I just had heard all this news that your kid has a tumor, it could be cancer, we need to get in there and do surgery immediately. And we waited for a team of doctors, and I remember walking down this long white hallway and just passing over my baby and then just praying that, please let this be okay. Luckily, and again, I just feel blessed because everything just has turned out so well for us. They went in, they pulled that tumor out of there, just the one that was smashing a spinal cord. And then, as you can see, he did get his movement back, and then the tumor that was in his chest, they didn't want to do anything with that. That was going to be chemo that was going to come along with that. So that was September 23rd. He recovered from that surgery. We never left the hospital. September 28th was my birthday. That was the day they put the port in, and then they started chemo the next day, and we did the 9.5 months of chemo, and it was very aggressive. As Cami mentioned, it was we pretty much were in primaries. We'd be in a week, home for a week, he'd get fevers, we'd be back, and it was pretty much 9.5 months living at Primary Children's. But I'll tell you, the people there are amazing, and just, it was so wonderful to have the nurses there and just the amazing doctors that we had. So we really grew to have a great family there. One of the things with Gavin, though, because at the time when all of this started, I thought, why me? Why my baby? How can this happen? This is my firstborn. I never got the chance to be a regular mom and know what that's about. And this kid right here was the happiest baby ever. Here he was, hooked to chemo. He has these red eyes, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, and he just looks miserable. Yet he was smiling every second. He's hooked up to these drugs that are making him so sick, and he was just the happiest baby ever. He couldn't really move his legs very well, and so he would just sit up in his bed. We'd prop him up with pillows, and he would just sit and fling his arms every time those nurses would come in, and he was just as happy as can be. And so that was a lesson to me that, why can I be poor me or why can I be upset and unhappy if my kid that is actually the one going through this can be as happy as he is? And so he is the one that really taught me a good lesson on positivity. And to back up my lesson, and maybe I said this, I don't want to be redundant here, but that is one thing and like I said, I may have mentioned this, but please just listen to your intuition. And if you or a family member really feels like something is wrong with you, just keep pushing till you find answers. Don't just listen to the first doctor that tells you that you're fine. That was a huge lesson for me. Something else about Gavin, back to the whole why. Why did this happen to me at this time? These are lessons that I've learned as time went on. I look back now, and he was my firstborn, and at the time, I had no other kids at home because as I met other families in the unit, and I would see how they would have to leave their babies in the unit while they were having chemo, and they would go home because they had other family members to take care of and that. I didn't have to do that. I got to live at Primary Children's with Gavin for 9.5 months. And what a blessing. We just had the best time, even though he was sick as can be. We sat in the bed. They let me have a bed. You got special treatment when you were in the cancer unit. You didn't have to put your baby in the crib that you probably were supposed to, but we would move the patient bed in there, and he and I would just sleep there every day and night, and we watched Cars. I don't know how many times, but I had it memorized, but I just had the best time with him, and I look back and think that was just special memories that he and I will always have that bond together. And so I'm very grateful. And I remember the fear I used to feel every time a scan would come up. The first scan that we had, his tumor had considerably shrunk. And from that point forward, I'll tell you the relief. That just gave me hope that every time after that, it just had to go away. And one thing I didn't mention either at the beginning was they had told me when they were saying that, okay, this is cancer and it is Ewing sarcoma, they had mentioned that if it had spread, his chances of survival would go down incredibly. And it had started spreading. It had gone into his lungs, but it luckily had not made it to his bone marrow. So that was a huge relief. So we made it through the chemo. So we're 11 and a half years now cancer-free, which to me is just huge. Right? 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 You should be proud of that. And then something else that we went through when Gavin was 3, so as I mentioned in the initial surgery, and actually I did fail to mention, he also had to go through radiation because they felt with Ewing sarcoma that the chemo alone he could have relapse if we did not do radiation. And on a baby, they don't want to do radiation. That's not something we'd ever promote, but he had to have it. It was pretty much either you take the chances it could come back as soon as we're done with this treatment, or you just do it. So we were faced with that decision, and we decided to do the radiation. Well, they had to do the radiation right up here on the back of his spine, right against his spine. And what that did is it killed those bones around that area. And so what happened is over the next few years as he was growing, his spinal column, so now they'd gone in and cut out part of his spine to get that tumor out of there, and then they'd shot that radiation so those bones were dead. And as he started to grow, he started to hunch. And so when he was 3, I noticed that he was starting to drag his foot. And they had already warned me during radiation. They warned me again that this could actually paralyze him over the next 6 months after radiation. It could just slowly kill off all of those nerve endings, so be prepared. Well, the 6 months came and went, and I thought, oh, he's good, he's still moving. So we've made it past, well, about 3 years old, he started to regress and was just dragging his little left foot. And I thought, well, this is, again, just part of his treatment, and this is what we have, and we're happy because this is all he has left. And we went to the doctor, and just to have it looked at, and come to find out that his little spine was bent at an 89-degree angle, and it was cutting his spinal cord off again, but his neck was hunching forward because he didn't have that support. So I was 8.5 months pregnant with my second baby, and they pretty much said, you need to get that baby out so we can get this baby back in to have another treatment. So I had my daughter Brinley a week early, and then we took this kid 2 weeks later, and we went back to primaries, and we bolted a halo on his head because he needed to get into traction to straighten his spine back up. And now at this time, I thought I'd already gone through the worst, but I'll tell you, this treatment, and I don't know if it was because I just had a baby or what, but this was the hardest treatment of our life so far. Because having to explain to your 3-year-old that when you wake up from this surgery, you're going to have these big bolts coming out of your head. That was just a scary thing to explain. And then when he woke up and was freaking out, it was a very scary moment. But we made it through. He had the halo. He was in traction up at Shriners for a few months, or a couple months, I'm sorry. And what they would do is every day they would just add weights so that it was pulling on his head to straighten him out. And then after that, we went back to primaries, and they put rods that go, turn around, little buddy. They just go right here from his neck down to here on his back. And that has now solidified to hold his body up. And actually, they fused his spine as well because all of that bone has died from the radiation. So now he's permanently fixed right here. And so now once a year, we see his orthopedic surgeon, and they watch that because these were their permanent rods. They don't take them out, and it's not something that we extend like normal rods do. He's just kind of been a special case throughout his whole treatment, but he's doing really well, and we're very blessed. And I think that, if anything, like I mentioned, his positivity is what kept me positive, because I really, at times, I would think it's sad. I felt so bad for him, and I wanted to take it away from him, but I feel bad saying that. I felt bad for me too, because how can I watch my kid go through this, and how did this happen? But it has taught me so much, and I do look back now, and I'm grateful for the time that I had to go through that with Gavin because it's just bonded us so much. And he and I had that special experience together. And he's an amazing, amazing kid. And I luckily had great support system. And that's why I think something like Needs Beyond Medicine is an amazing support for people that need it. I was lucky. I had a company that actually let me take that 9.5 months pretty much off work, and they paid me every week while I was gone, which was a huge, huge thing. So that's why I love things like this. I think they do an amazing job to help, because I know at that time I was so worried about my son that I wasn't necessarily worried about the next, I just wanted to be with him. And so I can't imagine how it would be to not, to have to worry about how you're going to pay your bills. So I'm just very grateful for the opportunity I had, and I'm grateful for places, support systems like Needs Beyond Medicine. And now, one of the ways I am grateful to be able to give back is I do the accounting once a month, and for Phil and for Needs Beyond Medicine, and I would like to keep doing what I can to support. So I think that's it, but I'm grateful that I got this opportunity to speak and that I get to be Gavin's mom and that he's here and survived, and he's a strong kid, strongest I know, right? Right? Thank you.